to the story of a columnist. Well, he was a columnist until the weekend. The Sunday Times firing Kevin Myers. Now, if that name doesn't exactly switch the lights on, he's a columnist for the Sunday Times Ireland, and he's written what's said to be an anti-Semitic column. So I do have to read it to you so that we can discuss it. So apologies, and if it causes offence, but it's a bit difficult to do the story if I don't tell you what he said. And this is what appeared yesterday. I note that two of the best-paid women presenters in the BBC, Claudia Winkleman and Vanessa Feltz, with whose no doubt sterling work I am tragically unacquainted, are Jewish. Good for them, the columnist goes on. Jews are not generally noted for their insistence on selling their talent for the lowest possible price, which is the most useful measure there is of inveterate, lost-with-all-hands stupidity. I wonder who are their agents. If they're the same ones that negotiated the pay for the women on the lower scales, maybe the latter have found their true value in the marketplace. Well, there was understandably a storm, and the editor, Martin Ivans, has subsequently apologised both to Ms Feltz and Mr Winkleman for unacceptable comments both to Jewish people and women in the workplace. And Frank Fitzgibbon, who is currently editor of the Sunday Times in Ireland, says, as the editor of the Ireland edition, I take full responsibility for this error of judgment. Gideon Falter is chairman for the Campaign Against Antisemitism and joins me now. How offended were you by those comments? Good morning.
Good morning. It was just astonishing to see them in a newspaper in 2017. There's something that wouldn't be raising eyebrows in Dickensian times, but to see those in the Sunday Times, one of the country's most respected broadsheets, was just an absolutely astonishing sight. I'm not sure how it is that the Sunday Times has managed to allow those comments to appear in its pages. They have probably been through sub-editors and editors
They would have done
who have looked at them and thought, yep, that's absolutely fine. Not only are they anti-Semitic, but they're also pretty misogynist. And I was staggered that they thought that this was a view they wanted to include. But I'm also astonished that he was employed by the paper in the first place. If you look at some of his videos, giving nothing to anyone apart from AIDS. That was his headline on one column. He's written a few columns in the Belfast Telegraph, in the Irish Independent. In one of them he says, there was no Holocaust and 6 million Jews were not murdered by the Third Reich. These two statements of mine are irrefutable truths, yet their utterance could get me thrown in the slammer in half of the countries of the EU. I mean, he's got some pretty offensive views, or at least ways of saying things, and I don't understand why it is that the Sunday Times ever thought they would want him in their pages.
I don't know how long he was working for them or writing for them. My next question was going to be, is it right that he has his employment terminated rather than suspended? But I sense from the tone of what you're telling me, you'd probably agree he should be gone for good.
Yes, I think this must be the end of his career. I don't think that anybody, particularly any decent paper, would want him appearing in their pages. They've removed the article. They've said that they will publish an apology in print next week. They've apologised fulsomely online already. So I think that the Sunday Times have now done the right things. I think what now needs to happen is that they need to look in great detail at their editorial processes, because something has gone very seriously amiss here.
And just lastly, that was the point you made at the start of our conversation, but if it was a single post online and he'd written it himself and posted it himself, not that I'm justifying it, but you could kind of understand how it at least got there. You're right, this goes through an editorial process, doesn't it?
It does. This will have been looked at by a number of people. You know, this is a serious newspaper. They don't sort of get something in just before the deadline and half read it and say, gosh, I hope it'll be okay, he's a veteran journalist. This has been probably submitted a number of days before the deadline. It's been read by someone fairly junior and then someone much more senior, at least, before it has gone in the pages. And those people have signed it off. So if it's not ringing alarm bells with the people whose very job it is to prevent this kind of nonsense and pretty offensive nonsense appearing in the paper, then there's a very serious problem with either the individuals that are editing the paper or with the processes that they're going through.
Gideon Falter is chairman for the Campaign Against Antisemitism. Thanks for your input on this.